Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. In support of AA's singleness of purpose, respectfully ask that sharing be confined to alcoholics. When discussing our problems, we confine ourselves to those problems as they relate to alcoholism. There may be visitors here who are unfamiliar with our tradition of anonymity. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and television. This tradition is a constant reminder that personal ambition has no place in AA. We're sure that anonymity is the greatest safeguard AA can ever have. We therefore seek your cooperation protecting the anonymity of our members at the public level. The format of tonight's meeting will be 3 10-minute speakers, followed by a fourth speaker until approximately 8:30. The meeting will then be open to the floor and close at 9 o'clock. Can we please have a moment's silence to remember Tradition 5? Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I would now like to introduce tonight's final speaker. It's Alexis.
I'm Alexis, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, and it's good to be at my home group, and it's good to be asked to share. I kind of, the reason I'm speaking, there's no newcomers here tonight, but the reason I'm speaking for still suffering alcoholic, that's what it's all about in AA. It's a way, one of the main 3 ways I stay sober is to try and pass on the AA method of recovery to others. But we talk about still suffering alcoholic. There's lots of people who can share for the newcomer. And I just thought maybe I could say something. I think one of the things that I've had, I'm like, Steve said, I'll be 25 years sober on Sunday, and I've been at the same home group for 24 years. I've had the same sponsor for 25 years. And, I just think I want to share a little bit about that. And one of the things that's helped me a lot with that, so this is maybe not, this for the person who's maybe, past the first year, maybe even, before that for some of them, but past the first year, second year, certainly 5th year, 10th year, just looking at, because what happens is people come here, they get an inspiring message, and that is, that's one of the reasons I come here actually. I love listening to the inspiring message and being part of that. And then a lot of them leave. A lot of people they go after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, they just leave. And I haven't left. And I've thought about it a lot. So I wanted to talk a bit about why I haven't left in that time, so I've thought probably just as much as all the people that have left about leaving, but I haven't done it. Why not? What's the difference between me and them? I don't really know. But the topic that is in my mind when I thought about this was certainty. Certainty is the thing. Uncertainty, when I came to AA, I wanted certainty. I wanted it. I wanted my sponsor, I needed a solution. I was crushed. I was in a psychiatric mess. I was in incredible pain. I was also incredibly childish. I didn't know it at the time. I'll tell you what, as I've stayed sober longer and longer, and it was my sponsor talked about this years ago, but one of the pieces of writing that I think is almost as important to the big book to me in longer term is the stuff by Harry Tebott, who was a psychiatrist, who was friends with Bill Wilson, who wrote the big book. And Harry Tebott published some articles about Alcoholics Anonymous, in the American Journal of Psychiatry, and a lot of it was based on his observations of what was about, well, it was about alcoholics, of his observations about alcoholics, and in AA, and in particular this ego thing. And he wrote in I've read some of his other articles that aren't in AA Comes of Age, and he says, that the word ego is often misunderstood. He's like, the ego is the problem. That's the problem with alcoholism. It's not the drink. The drink's just a symptom of this ego. And he says it's not talking about kind of the I'm so great ego. And he describes it as the ego with a capital E is what he's talking about, which is everything out of proportion. So my pain, I am convinced that my pain is more important and significant than other people's pain. I'm convinced that my pleasure is more important and significant than other people's pleasure. I'm convinced that when somebody looks at me in a miserable way, it's not because they're miserable, it's because they don't like me. I'm convinced that that I'm this big and the whole rest of the world, which should be 1 billion times bigger, is not. It's small compared to me. And that puts me into intolerable conflict with everyone around me. It means my boss feels like he's out to get me. It means I feel lonely in a room full of people. I feel like there's a glass wall between me and them. I can't reach them because I'm different. I'm special. I'm something different. I'm not equal to them. So the ego doesn't just mean that I'm amazing. It can also mean that I'm pathetic because I'm just obsessing. I've got the telescope on me and my feelings are everything. And, in fact, and what T-Bolt says is he says this ego, he calls it the remnants of childishness. And I love one line that he uses is, His Majesty the Baby. And he actually nicks that off Freud. I know Freud's not right, but he says he loves that line, His Majesty the Baby. And that kind of described, that for some reason, what Dr. T-Bolt believed is that this kind of childish, the baby dominates the household for natural reasons. All right. But like when I was 23, I dominated any household that was unlucky enough to have me in it. I had not grown up. My ego was still that of, I don't blooming know what age, just very young. And it was intolerable to me. It was horrible. Much as I would fight to be special, it was horrible because I felt lonely. All my pain was magnified. All my desires were more important. So anyway, and the other thing about, the childishness, this ego with a capital E, certainty. Kids like certainty. They just want to, you know what I mean? If you try and explain to a kid things, they'll just cry. When I came into AA, I had all that I just collapsed inside emotionally. The pain of drink, only you folks can understand the pain of drink. Sometimes when people say to me, oh, my family have said this to me, my family said this to me about I'm doing too much AA or whatever. I'm saying, mate, they didn't feel what you felt. They can never know how lonely and agonizing it is to be an active alcoholic. They will never know. They'll never know why we run away from it. They'll never know why we're so dedicated to AA because they've never felt it. And, so I had all that pain, and I wanted certainty. I was a kid. I was a desperate kid, smashed to bits by alcohol. And my sponsor, it's the most natural thing in the world, like a mother and child. Sponsor and a desperate alcoholic. The sponsor's got the passion to carry the message of AA. The still suffering alcoholic, the newcomer, wants all that passion, wants all that, just tell me, I want to know what to do. Every time I walk out the door, I said to my sponsor, every time I walk out the door, I screw up. Really what it was, every time I got out of bed, I screwed up. I wanted direction. And what amazing results I got. And those results doubled, tripled, 20 times increased my sense of certainty. I can't even tell you, if you're, I don't know if there's anyone here who hasn't done the steps, or is just doing, actually I know there's people here who are just doing them. When you see people standing up here getting all excited and stuff about doing the steps, it is an astonishing, indescribable feeling to realize when the steps have kicked in. It was like nothing I've ever felt before or since. So when my sponsor, and he did that for me, and I thought, he is everything. This guy has done for me what no mother, father, Albert Einstein, who was one of my heroes, Jim Morrison, who was another of my heroes. None of them could do for me. This guy's done it. And he became my new daddy. And I made him pay for being my daddy. I really did. And, but it was, it's all fine. The thing is about everything I'm sharing is that, it's all fine. I think, it's normal. It's normal to feel that. But I think sometimes the reason people leave is they don't go through the stages of sponsorship. They don't go through the stages of AA membership. They get stuck. It's like why marriages often split up. People are like, oh my God, I'm no longer desperately in love with my wife. I'm going to divorce her. It's been a lovely 5 years, but goodbye. And it's like, well, it's been ever since marriage began. Everyone knows the way it goes is you got the obsession bit, then it kind of doesn't get as, and you go through all the stages of marriage. I mean, just search on the internet and so the stage that, my experience has been, and I suspect it's very similar for a lot of people, the stage of sponsorship and, being a member of AA. By the time, my first desperate clash with certainty was by the time I was nine years sober. And I was right on the edge of leaving. I was right on the edge of leaving AA. Cause I just thought, well, because one of the things that Wayne, my sponsor, says is, the very thing we seek, this comfort, is the very thing that puts us at the greatest risk. And paraphrasing that, the very thing I was desperate to get away from, the drink and the pain of that, the further I got away from it, the less reason I had to remember and believe that it was that bad. I don't remember my drinking now like I did. I mean, when I was here for 6 months after I stopped drinking, my God, I remembered it. It was still vivid. The feelings were vivid. They're not now. I don't have as strong a memory. And when I was 9 years, I didn't have as strong a memory. There were lots of other things coming up in life. That initial razor-sharp determination that every successful AA member has when they do the steps, that the only important thing in the world is to get sober and do the steps. You can't keep that up for 10 years. Unless you're like psychotic, I suppose. You just can't keep up that razor-sharp determination. It's not mentally and physically possible. So I just got to a point where I thought, well, I can't be sure AA's right. I can't be sure my sponsor's right. I can't be sure I have to stay in AA. I can't be sure I have to do 3 meetings a week. I can't be sure I have to do this service. I wanted my sponsor to prove to me. I wanted the literature to prove to me beyond a reasonable doubt that this was where I needed to be. And they couldn't. Of course, you can't. And I just went on a hunch. And I had a really weird feeling on the way to the meeting here, because I was thinking about this 9 years thing. I suddenly remembered, and I stayed in AA and I didn't drink, but it was just a tiny hunch. It was just like, is this my, it was a hunch. I'd seen, I don't know. But here's the weird feeling. Around that time in his sobriety, my brother left AA, about like 8 years sober or something. And he drank again. And he's almost dead. And he's a much more powerful person than me, a much stronger person than me. I stayed in AA, and I don't really know what made me stay, but I can now look back on that, and I can see the insanity of demanding certainty. I wasn't going to leave AA because I knew it was all right to leave AA. I was going to leave AA because my sponsor couldn't prove to me I had to stay there. And maybe I'm the only person that thinks like this. But that was the weird thinking. That was the weird thinking for me. And one of the things that over the years I've realized, you just can't have this certainty. And it's childish. It's childish, demanding certainty. Life, no one can prove anything to you. There are very intelligent people who believe one thing, and there are just as intelligent and skilled people who believe exactly the opposite. You are never going to have someone who can just say to you, this is what you've got to do, and then prove it to you. Except in mathematics, which actually I did as my first degree, and maybe that's what caused all the problems. Albert Einstein once said that the great thing about mathematics is the one thing where if it says something, it is absolutely true. Unfortunately, mathematics is utterly useless unless you're a mathematician. So I guess my next clash with this, well, the thing is, with the certainty thing, is that you can't, I guess one of the things I've thought over the years, here's some of the other things with certainty over the last 25 years, and this just comes up repeatedly for me. I don't know if there's somebody here. I'll tell you one of the things, I think sponsoring a lot of people makes it easier. Because what I'm about to talk to you about is a little bit about science and testing things, all right? I haven't sponsored that many people over the last 25 years. My sponsor has sponsored, over 100, if not more, all right? He's had this little laboratory. He's not doing experiments on people, but he's seen people do the steps, not do the steps, stay in AA, not stay in AA. He's seen them become mates. Then they go off, some of the mates go off and leave AA and drink, and he hears about that because he's still sponsoring the mates. My sponsor sees all this, because I haven't sponsored that many people for whatever reason. That's a topic for another share. How am I meant to make a decision about these things? So, I've kind of, over the years, and this is, the purpose of what I'm saying is not to say you should all go out and start studying books about the consequences of alcoholism and can an alcoholic drink again and all that. What I'm saying is I'm talking about the insanity of almost every person I've seen leave when they're 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 years sober, either leave AA, leave their group, sack their sponsor, is almost every single one of them is running to something they don't know is safe or better. They're running from something where they're feeling bad, i.e. their sponsors pissed them off. AA's pissed them off. They're doing too much, so they're running away from a feeling with no evidence. It's like you got some cure for cancer in a hospital, all right? And it's like, it's really hurting, and a lot of the cures for cancer do really hurt, and it's really hurting, all right? And you think, this is hurting too much, I'm going to go to the other hospital. I've no idea what their success rate is, but maybe it won't hurt as much. Right? It's madness, and yet, I just see that happen again and again and again. Is this, if you can't prove it to me, and what I do, my solution has been, I do things, I look around. So, for example, when it comes to, leaving AA, do I need to stay sober? That's one of the big things why people leave. They think, well, I can drink again. That's one of the things why people leave. And the trouble is, there's just no studies of people over long periods of time. The sort of crap you hear from people about, that alcoholics can drink again. All right? It's based on studies of like 2 years. I'm 25 years sober. I've got 40 years of life left. I am not going to listen to some loudmouth therapist down the road who says, well, according to these 3 papers doing 2-year studies on alcoholics, they can go back to controlled drinking. I'm like, really? When you've got the 40-year studies, I'll listen. And I did find a 40-year study. I did find a 40-year study by a Harvard professor going over a whole life. And the point I'm telling you about this is not to try and prove you can't drink again, but to prove that if you're not doing this and you decide you can drink again, you're being irrational and childish. I should speak for myself, shouldn't I, really? That if I drink again without looking into the realities, making a mature judgment, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And this guy, I went through the book, and he was like, a significant proportion of the alcoholics could not return to normal drinking. I can't remember the precise proportion, but I remember circling it, underlining it in this book. So I thought, bloody hell. And this was like a 40-year study over like hundreds of people. And I thought, right, this is serious, And then on top of that, you've got the issue of people leaving AA. Now, the people leaving AA, my sponsor's got a much better perspective of that. But you hear that, like Jeff shared experience. I do hear stories like Jeff's repeatedly of people leaving AA who then, they have problems, and they talk about the ego thing, the ego coming back. And I relate strongly to that. And I relate to what happened to my brother. So I look at what happened to his ego when he left AA, and I think, Christ, we're very similar, except he's more stable and strong than me. And I can relate to that ego with the big E that he has. So I look at all of these things, and I think, right, leaving AA, I've got nothing to tell me it's safe to leave AA. I'm not going to experiment with my life. I'm not going to decide, I'll leave AA, see how the next 40 years go. Oh, wait a minute, I'm dead. I have, and this is the other important thing, the 12 steps, and being in this group and having the sponsor I have, the life that I have, there's a lot to lose. I've got a lot to lose. I like the kind of mental and emotional stability I have. I like the job I do. There's lots of things that could be better about my life. I haven't got everything I want, but I've got a lot of things, and I'm not, and also I say I don't remember the pain of alcoholism. I mean, I kind of do a bit. And when I see people coming in who've relapsed again and I see their suffering and I get this shudder because there is a part of me that remembers that pain. I can't go through that. I can't go back to that. There's a risk, 5%, 20% risk. I can't go back to that. It's too much. It's horrible what it would do to me and everyone around me. And then what about groups? What about choosing your group, choosing your sponsor? Because of course the classic one is road to recovery too controlling. My sponsor's too controlling. And it's like, well, all right, okay. 25 years ago, there were about 30 meetings, 30 groups in Plymouth. Now there's about 30 meetings, groups in Plymouth. There's only 3 of them, if not all, 2 of them, in fact, from when I first came in, are still going, are still the same ones. So what's that? I don't know. That's 95% of all the groups in Plymouth in AA have closed. I was there the night some of them closed, or the week that some of them closed. The Nuffield meeting, massive. I was there the week it closed. The Wednesday night step, really popular meeting. I remember it was that shrunk and they were begging people to do service. It closed. Loads of these meetings closed. So, don't take, my feeling is you've got to think about the group you're in. Because these groups don't all last. They don't all last. And then the other thing is sponsors. I mean, sponsors. That's the other, that most of the people that I knew, that I met when I came to AA 25 years ago in Plymouth. I mean, there's a handful. The people that were there 25 years ago, there is a tiny handful. So I reckon it's 10 people maybe from 25 years ago who are still sober. And I mean, I was at a meeting, very, very few people stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's just a fact of life. So in other words, I can't take for granted if I can find somebody who is staying sober, who's able to pass that on, and who kind of has people around him that are staying sober. That's a very important thing, and once again, when I'm thinking about this stuff, it comes back to my ego with a capital E. I can sense it at times, I can sense it coming out when I start to get it's especially at work, a bit with my family. I can sense it coming back and I think, bloody hell, I can sense that. I can imagine the pain it could cause me in 2 years' time if left unrestrained. And Harry T-Bolt was talked about, that's what makes you drink. That's what makes you drink. So these are all, I just think, when I think through all of these things, these are the reasons, that really because when things are good, your home group and sponsor are great, aren't they? When your love life's great, when the money's rolling in, when life feels good, isn't AA doing well? Isn't your sponsor a good sponsor? You know what I mean? And when things are bad, suddenly it's like you blame the things, the structures in your life. That's me, Blame the structures in your life. That's what I was doing, I think, when I was 9 years sober. So these are they're not the sort of things I think all the time, but when things are bad, the main thing I remember, and really, carrying the message, we're trying to carry the message of still suffering alcoholic. It sounds like, well, the message isn't that sobriety through teaching the practice of 12 steps. What is what you're saying got to do with teaching the practice of 12 steps? Well, a lot of what I'm saying is all step 10. It's all dishonesty. It's all arrogance. It's all me. Oh, I know everything about alcoholism and where I'm likely to stay sober. Oh, I don't need to look into it. I can just make the decision. I can just run away from the pain. I can just, it's step 10. And again, it's the step 10 that's made me go back to kind of look at this. And there comes a point, in the same way with a relationship when you're married, and you kind of realize you're not in love, or then as the years go on, you realize the kids have gone and you've actually got to talk to each other again. There's all these different stages. You know, with a sponsor, there has to come a point where I take responsibility for my own sobriety, and I don't go to him with every little thing. And you know, and I've done experiments with myself, and I haven't said to myself, well, I'm not going to take that to my sponsor. I've thought, imagine you couldn't take it to your sponsor. What would you do? Imagine this thing your sponsee's asking you that you're not sure what to do. Imagine you couldn't go and ask your sponsor about it. What would you do? And little experiments like that, and using step 10, and just realizing, you know, that no AA, no sponsor can be perfect. No sponsor can say all the right things all the time. You know, these have enabled me to take responsibility for my own life. And one of the things that I have decided as part of that is to step in line at this group. That's my decision. You know, that's the end result of all of this. I decide to step in line. I decide to, you know, I want a sponsor who's, you know, like my sponsor is. You know what I mean? These are all my decisions. And it's step 10 again. And I just really, they're things that maybe we don't talk about as much. But I think they're reasons maybe people leave a lot of the time. And they are simple. It is step 10. It is the stages of being sponsored. It is taking responsibility for your own recovery. That's all these things are. So they're all parts of the program. But yeah, there just comes a time where I have to, and not expect certainty, and not demand that my sponsor prove he's right, you know. So there you go. There you go. I think are you letting me waffle on, Nigel? No, good. Right, well, I'm going to stop anyway.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.